I'm ready.
We're recording. All right, guys, episode 22 of the Takedown. All right, I'm not going to say that the Bells was 5 minutes late and Khaled was 10 minutes late to this show, that this show is getting bigger than Joe Rogan and I'm getting treated as if I'm a peasant. But, you know, it is what it is. We're here. Khaled is a assistant coach on the varsity team. He's been with us, I think, 3 or 4 years now. Four, I think, maybe four. Holy cow. 4 years, Khaled, and we're going to talk about Khaled. Last time we did a quick interview with him last time with Alex, and it just became, you know, me talking about the club and me rambling on and on. We're going to try to get to know Khaled a little bit more. Khaled started his career, and we'll let him talk about it, but started as a jiu-jitsu guy, was an age-level jiu-jitsu world champ. Obviously, that's a big accomplishment. His coach, and he'll talk about it, but they talked him into wrestling, started as like a 10th grader, I believe, or 9th or 10th grader. A little late in the game, started taking it serious. The later career, 11th or 12th grade, was third in the section his senior year. I very well think he could have been a state placer, state champ that year, but one bad match, it happens. You know, he was a little late to wrestling, so that did not help. But he's been maturing a lot as a coach, and he's an intricate part of Greeley, and he's an intricate part of Empire, which I would say is a top 5 club in the country. Khaled Dassan. Ooh, that was a good intro. Okay, so KD.
Ask me how I got into wrestling.
Well, I'm gonna, but we'll get there because I know your career. So Khaled's career is a little different because he was into. We'll start with this because he was into combat sports early, right? But he wasn't into wrestling early, so it's a little different than some of these other kids. I don't even know this answer. What, Khaled, made you get into doing jiu-jitsu, like when you were a young guy?
Ooh, that's a good question. My uncle's place was just down the hill, and it was just, he was always telling me to do it. And then finally, when I was 8, I just said, you know what, I'm going to do this. And I, went in there and started training, and, I just fell in love with the sport. I like combat sport, and I really didn't like playing with other teammates and, leaving my fate up to someone else, you know what I mean, in the sport. So I just thought I like the individual part of the sport.
I like that. And D, I'll let you jump in a second here on this too, but I have a feeling.
What do you mean, let me? What do you mean, let me? What does that mean?
If you want to get muted, you want to get muted again.
I'm just asking, what does that mean, though? Does it sound a little...
We're recording. Wait, you muted him.
Yeah. All right, he's unmuted. He's back. All right. I could be wrong, Khaled, but you seem like the type that was an energetic youngster where you probably were like bouncing off the walls, and your mom was probably like, we need to get this guy out of the house. He's got to stay busy.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe jiu-jitsu was something that kind of helped with that. You think that's a fair point?
I would say that's fair. I would say that's, I would definitely have a lot of energy. No lack of energy here. Yeah, for sure.
Coach, you remember Wendy talking about that yesterday, kind of with Jacob? Like he's just always had to stay active. So like she put him into wrestling.
Well, in school, right? If a kid is overactive or getting in trouble, they always call me and say, Tabellis, you need to get this kid on a wrestling team. He needs something to do. And a lot of times it's a good path for a young, energetic, misguided young man or woman to get into a sport that they will, that will drive them. And I think that certainly happened for Khaled.
Well, Khaled learned a lot, I think. Khaled continues to evolve just like us and anybody. And each year he's a different guy, but Khaled, I think, is a dangerous guy. When you know as much as he knows about jiu-jitsu and being a world champ or whatever, but it's almost like, to me, it's like controlled chaos kind of thing, right? Like he's a fun guy, he jokes around, but he has it in him because of a sport that he took very seriously for a very long time. So I think that's beneficial for multiple things. One is always be able to protect himself, but two, he could take, I like to think I have a chip on my shoulder sometimes. At least I was a good kid, but I always wanted to prove something, right? I always kind of was like that. I didn't want to be doubted, and I think in a sport like jiu-jitsu and wrestling, you kind of prove that you're made of something, right? A lot of these people, you see on social media or you see on whatever, you're talking to them. Everybody wants to talk like a tough guy all the time. And I think a sport like wrestling and jiu-jitsu are two sports where you can really see what you're made of. And I really love that about those sports. Would you say that, Khaled?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely would agree with that. Just, at the end of the day, you have to go out there and compete by yourself. So, it's a good way to show, like what you said, show what you're made of.
Yeah. And we'll go now. Coach Sam, I think, was the one that said, that's where you're at right now, was the one that said you should transition to wrestling. Do you remember that like conversation?
Yeah, I actually do. Well, it wasn't much of an option. He just said you have to go and wrestle, and just something you have to do if you want to excel in jiu-jitsu. And I said I'm not sure. I'm already doing, I was already doing fine. I was winning most every tournament, and he was like, you have to do this if you want to get to the next level. And I said well, I didn't have an option, so I went into practice and I met Pete, and then I think I actually missed the bus the first day, and Pete came and picked me up. It's so funny. It's like I was late to the bus. Like I guess Pete heard like about me, so he's like he wanted me on the team, and Justin as well, my buddy Justin, and I missed the bus, and he like literally came and picked me up from the school. It was like, because we had like 8 schools merged into one program, and so we all had except for if you went to Gorton, because that's where the practices were held. All the buses picked everyone up and brought them to the high school where we practiced, and I missed the bus because I might have been playing around or doing something, and Pete came and picked me up. So I liked Pete right away.
Well, Pete's a good dude, and Pete's a guy. Pete and Coach Sabellis, I think Coach is a big fan of Pete. I'm a big fan of Pete.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I think he's a perfect guy to kind of get a guy like Khaled, who's a great guy, great kid, but he was a wild little guy, like a wild big guy.
Yeah,
but energetic, all that stuff. So I think Coach Pete was the perfect guy to say, hey, this is a sport for you. Let's get you right, dude.
Yeah.
Well, do you feel like if you didn't have Coach Pete, would you have made it through high school wrestling? Would you have made it through on another team? Or was Pete the perfect coach for
I would have made it through high school period without Coach Pete, let alone high school wrestling. Yeah, but Pete was very similar to Coach Sabellis, no ego type of guy, where he was like he knew if I wanted, because I told him from the beginning I wanted to be a state champ, I guess and he said, if you want to be a state champ, you have to train with John and Tora at Empire. And I said, at the time it was Iowa style. And he said, you have to go. And the next day I was, he found me a way to get there, because it was a little far. It was about 40 minutes from my house to the club. And I just went, and, I appreciate him doing that for me.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Pete is a special guy, a special coach. He runs a lot of the Section 1 stuff. If you see the county tournament, that's a fundraiser for the Coaches Association, which pays for the all-section dinner. And he also runs, when it was at Pace, he used to pick up all the mats. I mean, Pete does a lot for Section 1 wrestling, for sure. And he's a great
D.
What's that? Here he is.
Oh, we lost you for a second. I want to make it more about Khaled, but I will say one more thing about Coach Pete.
Hey, Adam's right now.
What's up, bud?
Adam's calling me on FaceTime right now. That's why
he's not getting his life together. I called him 2 days ago. He didn't pick up, and then he called me the next day like, I'm going to answer. Pick up on my first call.
We should do an interview.
But anyway, so just one more thing on Pete, because I think Pete was instrumental in Khaled staying into the sport. And now look at Khaled, right? He's a great coach for us, and he's a great guy for Empire. So you look back at that, and it's super important. And just to touch back on the point that he had no ego, it's like, I was coaching at Greeley, and at that time we had good teams. This year we were okay. We're getting better, all that stuff. But we were the top 5 or so team in the section. Yonkers wasn't that bad either with Khaled and Justin and those guys. They were tough too. And, there was no ego of Pete saying, oh, this is a Greeley coach. I don't, whatever. He doesn't need to be involved with Khaled. He right away, like Khaled said, hooked me up with him and said, hey, Ant, called me. He goes, this is a good kid. I want him to get up to the club. I know you're working at Cross County at the time. Can you drive him up? I'll figure a way out to, if you need any help or like he would have done. I was like, no, I'm good. I'll take him. No big deal. But he was willing to go above and beyond to make sure that Khaled and Justin and David and whoever else was able to get up to the club and get practice. And, it's different than some other coaches. And this is not a disrespect to those coaches. We have some great coaches in the area, but a lot of coaches have egos. And it's fine. That's human nature for some people. But he never did. He was all about Khaled getting better. He would call me mid-season if Khaled and somebody would be in an argument at practice. He would call me about it too and be like, hey, we need to talk to him. And it was like a united front where we kind of we had Khaled's best interest, and Pete always did, and I'm sure he always will. And I think that's important to say.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I don't think I would be where I'm in or the spot I'm in now if it wasn't for him. I mean, I would not have went up to the club. I was just a guy, and he really guided me to go in the right direction.
Little known fact about Pete, and this will be the last thing I'll say there, and then we'll get more to Khaled, is before John really opened the club, before the club was big, it might have been very, very small. I started at the club as a 7th grader. And that was like the first real class. Like guys like you were talking about with John, like Mazurko were trained, but that was a little bit before me. But that wasn't really a club. It was like a couple guys at practice. When I was like sixth, seventh grade, I was really into wrestling. But there wasn't off-season stuff really. Like we didn't have the opportunities, or we didn't know what the opportunities were. And somehow my dad got close with Pete. I don't know if it was at a youth tournament or whatever it may have been. They became kind of friendly. And I used to go to Ardsley. That's when Pete was the coach at Ardsley. I used to go to Ardsley Open Mats all the time. Pete was great to me. He would take me to tournaments. He would take a bunch of us, Ardsley kids, me, sleepy kids, to these tournaments. I don't remember, my dad would know, but I don't remember even giving him a dime. It was more he just did it,
Yeah.
And he's a really good guy. So I appreciate Coach Pete, and hopefully he watches this and enjoys listening to Khaled tell his story. But back to Khaled. So you jumped into wrestling, and did you start, Khaled? Was it 9th grade or 10th grade? Because I met you when you were in 10th grade. But
I started in 9th grade, and then you start winning a little bit more, and you're like, okay, this is I started like I could do something with this, and I had like my first freshman year I might have been like 7 and 8, something like that. And then my sophomore year I might have been like 30 and like 6 or 7 or whatever it was, and I said, you know what, I want to do this like this. I couldn't take those 7. It was like either between 7 and 10 losses. I get my sophomore and junior year mixed up, but my sophomore year I think I had like between 8 to 10 losses or somewhere around that there, and I didn't enjoy losing. I actually probably hated losing more than I enjoyed winning, and I have to do something about this. I couldn't take it anymore, so I said, Pete, what do I have to do? Like it goes back to Pete, but yeah, he told me, you just have to you need more of a commitment. And I said, I'm gonna, whatever you want me to do, I will do. I can't take this anymore. And so I went up, and that's when I think my sophomore year I was more serious about wrestling, but I started my freshman year, to answer the question.
DeBellis, would you say, Coach, that we talk about guys that just start wrestling and stuff, and sometimes at the heavyweights you'll find a guy that's not that great, but you're going to be wrestling, Khaled's a freshman, you're going to be wrestling juniors and seniors, and you have no experience, right? And you're like, hey, you're wrestling 220 or whatever he was wrestling. Would you say that's a big difference, Coach, between wrestling like a lighter weight maybe as a freshman,
Yeah, you're going to be wrestling juniors and seniors mostly. Those guys, a lot of those guys in 7th and 8th grade, they were the lightweights because they were allowed to wrestle up onto the varsity, the younger kids that were really good. And then, look at Brady, not Brady, Robin, what's his name? Dennis. No, Brady.
Both of them, but Dennis was recent.
But Dennis was lightweight, and then all of a sudden now he's wrestling 160.
Yeah.
Yes.
It happened.
Came up. So when Khaled was wrestling those guys were juniors.
Mm-hmm. And new to the sport.
Beating him.
And I think, and you two could chime in on this, because I don't know if my opinion is the same as your guys'. This is just my opinion. Like looking at guys like PJ, for example, right? PJ started wrestling, and now he does judo and other stuff, and the judo is complementing his wrestling. It's helping his wrestling. Where I think for Khaled, it was the opposite, where the wrestling was complementing his jiu-jitsu, but the jiu-jitsu is not really complementing his wrestling. So like he was and that's not jiu-jitsu is a great sport. But yeah. I think, it's slower pace. It's very technical. It's very smart, right? Khaled's a smart wrestler, and that probably does come a little bit from jiu-jitsu, but his jiu-jitsu career wasn't going to automatically make him a good wrestler. His wrestling was going to help him with jiu-jitsu. Where I think, some kids like what PJ's doing is really smart, where he wrestled his butt off. He's been wrestling for forever, but now he does some judo, so he could add some different caveats into his attacks. Khaled, was that transition weird a little bit? Like saying, because in jiu-jitsu, you're dangerous on your back. You're dangerous in these positions. Like, was it a weird transition, like going from jiu-jitsu to wrestling?
It definitely was. I mean, I think there's something called pulling guard. I think I might have pulled guard my first match, and Pete's like, "What are you doing?" I clasped like 40 times. I think I almost got like in like the first like 10 matches. I might have clasped like eight times, and just Pete was like, "You can't lock your hands." And I was just like, "What do you mean you can't lock your hands? Why wouldn't you be able to lock your hands?" But I do, my freshman year was so awful. It did help me fight off my back. I got to give just a little credit there. It did help me fight off my back, because I was certainly on my back pretty often.
Used to pass the guard and stuff, and like, yeah. I don't want to get too far into Khaled later, but like we would like wrestle, and we'll talk about some of that more. But even when he first was starting to get good, like not even that great yet. Senior year, he was a lot better than when he was a sophomore. But he was always very like awkwardly weird in positions, because he could like do stuff like that. Like he could scoot his hips and like pass guard in a sense. And you're like, where the hell is this guy going? All of a sudden he's like trying to crawl around me. I'm like, how is that even possible? But so you get to oh, go ahead, coach. I'm sorry.
Willie, do you think that a couple of those drills in the room might help our wrestlers with their hips? Because I'm in my head, I'm envisioning just passing the elbow over, like just getting out of the way. Even not to say that you have to be on your back, but maybe on the side, kind of knowing where your hips are, knowing where your hands are, knowing where your head is.
I would say, yeah, but the problem is with a lot of those drills, Coach DeBellis, is that the problem is that, a lot of them are off your back. So a lot of the hip drills that they do, like they do a drill where like they're stripping and like they get their hips back and like to create space to get back to their guard position. It's just you're on your back, so it might build bad habits potentially. I don't know. I've never.
Well, don't jump in on that, DeBellis, because you're very good at that too. But you weren't a jiu-jitsu guy, and I'm real good at it too. Like not to the level that Khaled does it differently, right?
I think it's a skill that our guys would need because their hips are too close.
But here's my argument, right? And I get it. We could add something like that, but here's my argument. It's that nobody taught me and you how to scoot our hips out from being on our back, right? There's gotta be a point where you know that you're on your back and you gotta figure out a gosh darn way to get up. And if that means, trial and error, if you're on your back 20 times in a season, if you weren't able to develop a way to figure out how to get off your back, you're not trying that hard.
Well, you shouldn't go to your back.
You shouldn't go to your back. But yeah, maybe like I see what you're saying. I don't think it's the worst idea to implement the drill to work on getting off our back. But yeah, like, Russo was talking the other day. Remember Russo's interview? He barely got pinned. And that wasn't because he was a skilled wrestler, because he was tough and he fought. I think when push comes to shove, when you're on your back in wrestling, you got to fight. And if you have a lot of fighting, you're not going to get pinned that often. Look at Izzy this year. She wasn't a jiu-jitsu superstar. Now, it did help Khaled, right? But like Khaled said, it could build some bad habits too at the same time. He kind of just had that in him, if that makes. And I think Khaled's mentality has a lot to do with that too, because Khaled was tough. As Khaled didn't know as much wrestling when he first started, he wasn't not getting pinned because he was a good wrestler. He was not getting pinned because he didn't want to get pinned. I think that, pride in himself, in a sense, is important. But anyway, so you did the jiu-jitsu, you got into wrestling, and you were doing pretty well. You came into club, and I told this story last time, but we got rid of that one. First days I practiced, DeBellis. I don't know this kid from a hole in the wall, but super polite, nice kid, whatever. And he asks me to wrestle. I'm like, sure. And I'm not trying to lay the hammer down on the kids, except like the really, really good kids, I'll go hard. And like, but this is some random kid from Yonkers, and Yonkers at the time was okay, but they weren't, I'm like, who's this random kid from Yonkers? Like, what does he want to do? So I'm like, I'm kind of sparring around with him, and he's trying. And he gets onto a high crotch. And I'll never forget this. He gets onto a high crotch, and you guys know me well. I'm pretty good defensively there. But I couldn't break his grip. And I remember thinking to myself, like, holy cow, like, this kid could be tough. And he wouldn't stop. Like, if I remember correctly, he was on a high crotch on his knees, and I was able to get it down to my ankle or something. And he was, like, clamping. And I'm like, my God. Like, and I don't know what happened after that. But, like, right then and there. Huh?
Yeah. You want me to refresh your memory? I think I got 5 takedowns to none.
I think that didn't happen. but do you remember your first taste, Khaled, of like real, and not, again, like I love Pete. Pete was great. It wasn't his fault that you didn't have a substantial workout partner or things of that nature. Do you remember your first taste of like real, like, hey, like I'm going to get better here. Like this is real practice. Do you remember that?
Yeah. I remember going into practice and just having like Yusuf and Larm. And I said, like, this is where, this is it. These are the partners I need if I want to excel in the sport. And we all kind of worked around each other, and it was perfect. It was a perfect, situation. We had Bim too that was there. He was a little younger, but he was there. Khalil was there. We had a great group of heavyweights. Those guys were a little younger, but yeah, we had me, Yusuf, Larm and Donardo and Malikian, and we were all working out with each other. I was like, oh, and Malikian. He always looked older than what he actually is. So I went in there and I was drilling him and he wouldn't stop. Like his pace was insane. Like he wouldn't stop. And I'm like, oh, this kid must be in college. He already had a beard. We were both like sophomores, and this kid had a beard, full beard. He looked like he was 24. And I was like, oh, what grade are you in? And he's like a sophomore. He's like, I'm a sophomore. I have a lot of catching up to do. I need to commit to this, or else I'm going to be way behind the curve. And so I just once. I actually think even just drilling with Malikian, I was like, I have to pick it up. This is wrestling. There's more to this just than being tough. I need to learn how to wrestle.
Were you
Go ahead, Coach.
ever able to grow a beard?
Huh?
Were you ever able to grow a beard?
No, I might be the
Oh.
first Arab who was not able to grow a beard.
You had a little beard during quarantine. I saw it.
Uh,
You had a little something going on. Nothing as perfectly growing in as this, but it was something. But
Chia.
but quick
We
side.
should make a mold of it to Torah and have a chia pet for the Torah. I'm gonna make.
Mike, are you really cruising for a mutant today?
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. But
I lost.
quick story about Malikian, though. I just want to say this because it has nothing to do with anything, but just like hopefully people are watching this and the drive, right, of people that really want to be good. Binghamton's a great program. I still think maybe technique, like Alex, if Alex was coached, I don't know, this might come off wrong. Alex could have been better than maybe he's doing college right now, but he's great. He's doing fine. He made big jumps in high school because of his work ethic.
He's the captain.
He's a captain. He's got that mentality, right? Like, but that's kind of like what we were talking about with Jacob a little bit yesterday. You could do everything right, and sometimes it doesn't always end perfectly, but it still was worth it for you. He tore his like labrum or something. He did something. It's like sophomore year. I don't know if Khaled was there yet. It could have been his freshman year then. I don't know if it was freshman year or sophomore year, but he couldn't use one of his arms. And he was that guy. And Khaled was kind of that guy too towards the end, and we'll talk about that as well. But like that would annoy me in a good way. Like practice would be over and I'd be like leaving practice and he'd be like, oh, coach, can you do this with me before I leave? I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, I want to stay in my stance. And all you're going to do is I'm going to walk in my stance down the room and you're just going to pull on my head.
Yes,
I'm like, sure. So like this kid would be literally in a sling and I'd be going with my hands, boom, boom, and he'd be like, and his stance walking down. But I loved it. I was annoyed at the time, but I'm like, yo, this kid's crazy and I kind of like it, you know. But yeah, you need that. And I think for Alex and guys like Khaled that did go through stuff like that, even if their wrestling career wasn't NCAA champ, it's still going to serve them really well.
Yeah, I think he was definitely he set the standard for work ethic, Alex. I mean, even when he was injured, like you said, he would always come in and, was working as hard as possible.
He was crazy, man. He was that guy. So your sophomore year comes, you get a little bit more success. If I don't know, refresh my memory, because I know 11th and 12th grade, you basically lived at the club. You were there all the time. 10th grade, were you there a lot or not as much? I don't remember.
Sophomore year. So I came, I'm pretty sure I came after my sophomore season.
Oh, so spring, summer. Yeah, going into junior.
And I actually think I'm actually positive. I lost to a horse wheeler wrestler in like the blood round to like go to the next day or like to
Billy
place. Billy Marino, yeah. And again, like you guys were saying, I think I was a sophomore and he was a senior at the time.
So I wasn't coaching you yet at that point.
No, you actually didn't even know who I was.
Yeah.
I remember what mat it was on, though.
Sorry?
I remember what mat it was on. It was on the first mat in Yonkers.
That was the first time they wrestled.
I lost him twice. Yeah, no, but it is. He's 100% right. It was on the first.
Yeah, good memory, D. But they wrestled twice.
Because I remember I wasn't on that mat, but I looked over when it was over, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So the first one was a pretty bad beat, and it was like 10-0 or something. And then the second one, I closed the gap a little, and it might have been like 5-3 or something like that. And I said, when it was over, I just was like, again, it goes back to talking to Pete and him sending me to the club. But I started after my sophomore year.
Your sophomore year, you lost to Billy 5-3?
Yeah.
Wow. That's impressive because Billy wrestled a long time.
Yeah, he was tough.
Well, Billy placed that year.
Oh, that was Billy's senior year?
I believe so. So Billy was coming through the wrestlebacks, and then so was Khaled, I guess, and Billy knocked him off. Then Billy ended up taking, I think, 4th. But he lost a close match to you remember, I might be wrong on this, but I think I'm right. That was the year that Youssef came in at a really low seat. So he knocked off Harnett, who probably was the second best guy in the way at the time, even though Khaled would be better than him eventually. But at that time, that Harnett kid was probably the second best kid.
Yeah.
Youssef knocked him off. So then Billy had to wrestle Harnett for 3rd and 4th, where Billy probably could have took 3rd, but Harnett shouldn't have been going for 3rd and 4th because they wrestled in the semis because Youssef randomly got thrown into the bracket.
I think he beat him.
Then Billy must have lost to somebody else on the front side, so I don't know what happened there. But maybe Youssef. I think he did lose to Youssef. I don't know.
I think Billy lost to Youssef that year.
So, yeah. So, Billy might have been the 3rd best guy in the bracket, and Khaled was right there. So, in comes your junior years. Now, that whole summer, so me and Khaled got really close probably that summer, and the summer after. But, like, Khaled, Justin, and David, I would bring them up to the club a lot. And one thing I'll say about Khaled is that he's always been a competitor, always. I think Eddie's still growing and we're still growing. I think his work ethic wasn't bad because he was there. He was at practice all the time. He wanted to be there. But I think Khalid's thing as a junior, not as much as a senior, was that he was so likable, right? And the kids liked him so much that he had so much fun, like busting chops and playing around with them. And, you know, we had to like guide him into like, hey, you know, do this. But there was never a time, a special thing about Khaled is though, there was never a time when I told him to do something and he didn't do it, right? It wasn't that. It was more that his self-motivation sometimes had to pick up. And I think as a coach now, especially with the stuff that he does at Empire, I think that his self-motivation has jumped levels. You know, he was tough. He worked hard. He listened to his coaches, but he wasn't the guy as a junior to say, hey, like I'm going to go run 10 miles today, or I'm going to go, you know, I'm going to drill like a madman. I'm not going to have to Tora come say something and then me and Lauren giggle at the silly joke we just made. Like, you know what I mean? Like he changed and he's maturing. But would you say, Khaled, that was a thing, like as 11th grader, like your focus wasn't always in the right place maybe?
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely agree with that. I think, you know, there wasn't too many people from Southern Westchester in the club, you know, and from Yonkers in general. I don't think there was anybody in the club. And, you know, just a different person, you know, different, you know, coming up to the club. I think as soon as I got in there, you know, I made friends immediately. I think most places I do, I'm good at making friends. So I think, you know, it was different. I don't know. I just, you know, as I probably joked around too much, but even talking about what you said about like even the self-motivation, I remember you making me run to your house to get a ride to practice. I was like, oh, I have to do this or else I'm not going to practice. And I enjoyed wrestling obviously more than I did running. I was good to practice.
There's a funny video on my Instagram still, and a bunch of the kids already saw it because I talked about it. But I think we were coming back from like Vermont or something. We were coming back from some club tournament, and Khaled was always shotgun. Like he carried respect. Like those kids, even when he wasn't winning state titles or nothing at the time, nobody like would BS with him. He's like, no, I got shotgun, and he would just get shotgun. And I have a recording of him saying, "I will never talk again in Coach Notora's practice," with his like '80s mustache, and something was going on there. But it's crazy. What I want to point out though is I don't want it to be a negative, right? Khaled was new to it, right? He wasn't used to it, and he still would do everything. Like he said, he ran to my house when I told him to run to my house. Whatever I told him to do, he would do. He wasn't immersed into this like a PJ or even me, like since a third grader. You know, I was doing this my whole life, and now as a coach, what are you, 22 now, Khaled? How old are you?
Yep,
22. So as a 22-year-old, Khaled will go to Penn State. He'll go do this. He'll do that, and he'll pick up techniques, and he's very smart. You know, he's very smart. So he'll pick up things and I'll learn from that, you know, and I'll be like, oh, that's interesting. And he gets it, right? And I feel like if he started the wrestling thing maybe 2 or 3 years earlier, the results were good anyways, but the results would have been better. It would have been a clear section champion. Probably would have been a state champion. Probably would have been all of these things because he was already tough. He already listened to his coaches, but he was new to the game. You know, he was new to the game. Jiu-jitsu is a different game, and that's not a slight at jiu-jitsu. It's just different. Would you say that's a thing, Khaled?
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that. I think, you know, we're at an age now where people who are starting at the younger age, you know, there's guys who get good results. Like, you know, Jay Albus, I think, started when he was a freshman. He's a, you know, 2-time national champ. But for the most part, so those kids who, you know, start when they're in their, you know, in like the Greeley, you know, youth program or in their youth programs, those are the kids who do well. You know, you see a lot of those kids, you know, a lot of them graduating this year, like Tyler, Dennis, you know, those type, AJ Kovacs who came through the program. Not our program, but, you know, the Empire program. And it's like you see the results again. It's a lot of those guys who win section titles, they've been wrestling forever. Like you could name a bunch. You've seen them around forever. So I definitely think starting at a young age definitely impacts results.
But you know, it's a great sport where Khaled's right. I do agree. If you want to be good at this, it's better off to start younger. And for Khaled, though, I think it's a little different. Where I think if he started younger, he would have understood the technique quick and knew how to work. I think Khaled had the capabilities of doing it with the experience that he had as a senior. I just think a year or two more of being into this climate would have made him into that guy, because now being in this climate 2 or 3 more years later as a coach, you're seeing that, like, you know, and not to brag, we're grown men, right? But like he's wrestling like 220-pound state champs, 220 heavyweight, and he kills that. And he's really not that much older than them. You know, I just think that's that shows that if he had a little bit more of like, hey, like this is wrestling and this is what you need to do, he would have been more successful. But it's fine. Everything happens for a reason. I think that probably, and Khaled, you could speak on this, you not winning a state title maybe your senior year probably propelled you to be as serious as a coach as you are now because you left some on the table.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think, for me, to be honest with you, I would talk about maybe work ethic more than anything. Cause like for me, I never even taken a sip of alcohol before. I've never smoked anything. I've never done any of that ever, not even.
You blow smoke sometimes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You mute him?
No, not yet. He's good right now.
I've been good.
I wanted you to.
Me muted. I'm the freaking host of this goddamn show, so don't even try that again. Go again.
Lee, call me after. We got something to talk about, all right?
Oh, man. But yes. Oh, no, for sure, though. I definitely agree with that, I definitely think that, not winning that state title made me want to give back and, and help others, achieve their goals because I wasn't truly able to achieve mine in the sport of wrestling, for sure. And, I definitely felt like, I wanted to get right back into it. And, or we'll probably talk about it later how I got into coaching, but that's probably why I got into it.
Well, yeah, I mean, and we'll transition to that now because, your senior year. So we'll talk a little bit about your senior year and then we'll transition to coaching. But so you were working hard your senior year, you changed, you wanted it, but you still weren't what you are now. You weren't into it as deep as you are now. It was a little different. With that being said, you had a great Eastern States. You showed you could compete with the higher guys in the state. You had one bad match at sectionals and so he lost, if the people that are listening are curious, he lost to this kid Clune from Fox Lane in the quarters, I believe. And then he beat him again then he beat him for third and fourth. So he got his win back. And if you really want to get in depth into the tournament, Clune in the semis after he beat Khaled was kicking the tar out of the kid from Clarkstown South. I don't remember his name. What was his name, Khaled?
I don't remember that kid's name either.
That kid ended up taking fourth in the state and ended up winning the section. Clune was killing him and gassed and broke. And the kid from Clarkstown South ended up beating him. And then Khaled dismantled Clune for third and fourth. So that kid from Clarkstown ended up taking fourth in the state. So, you really shouldn't do wrestling math, but if you do, he was right there with the top guys in the state. I mean, it was just one bad match kind of held him away. I think if he was a little bit more into the game, a little longer, he wins those matches. But it is what it is. Myself and Coach Tabellis didn't reach our goals completely, and it helps me. So what I love about Khaled is the fact that we could continue this, like, I don't want to say mentee, mentor kind of thing, because now Khaled's one of us, so it's a little different. But, like, I like to think that Coach Tabellis is one of my mentors, right? Even though we both do the same thing. And I like to look at Khaled as an equal and as a peer now, but at the same time, I want to help him, guide him into the right direction. And he's doing that, aces, right? He's crushing it. Like, what he does for Empire, like at Greeley, it's hard because John has him running around in 15,000 different directions. But, what he's doing for Empire, especially like through this quarantine, it shows what he's capable of as a coach, right? Not only technique wise, building relationships and stuff like that. So I don't know, Khaled, we could start earlier before we get into all that. How did you start getting into this whole coaching thing? What would happen there?
Actually, it was funny. You called me. I was heading home from the beach with Justin, and you called me, and it was like, hey, do you want to start coaching? Like, I know you're not going away for school or anything, so if you want to start coaching, I would like to have you at Greeley. And I said, of course, that'd be pretty cool. I've never, I was helping out with some MMA guys, like some wrestling for the MMA guys, but I never was like a coach. I was just more like a wrestling partner. So I said, as soon as you called me, I was like, yeah, for sure, I would love to do that. And you gave me the whole scoop of what it would be like. And basically, if I probably didn't get that call, I probably would not be coaching. So I actually started coaching at Horace Greeley. And then once John saw me coaching at Horace Greeley, I think he called you to get me back in the room, or he called you or me. I forget.
We talked.
Yeah, and then to get me back in the room, and then, that's where it all started.
I remember telling John that he's doing a really good job, and he's like, all the kids like him. That's a big thing for a coach. There's a lot of coaches out there that, it's easier to work hard for somebody that you give a crap about. If you don't respect the person or you don't like the person, then you're not going to work as hard. And Khaled has that in him where kids like him and they want to work hard for him. With that being said, you started at Greeley. We got to talk to John. We got to get Khaled's priorities together. Greeley's first, and then Empire. We got to talk to that John Deagle, Empire Wrestling Academy.
I'm the third man down at Greeley.
Yeah, true. Whatever. So yeah.
And you and DeBells take the weight off everyone else's shoulder. So
Well, thank God for Coach.
guarantee.
We're getting a little tired, though. We need your help more.
Stop in sometime. But what was I gonna say? No, he does a good job with our guys. He does a great job with Empire guys. But his first year coaching with us, it wasn't bad at all. But it was more like he was basically almost like a volunteer assistant at a college level, right? He was still he was a young guy. He was Jacob's buddy, but he wrestled with Jacob. He helped Jacob. Like that's important too. That's something important too. But like now, as a guy 3 or 4 years in, he is he's the coach, right? Like John was talking about the other day, like, John used to be like the old man figure. I used to relate to the kids at the club. And now it's, John's the old man figure. I'm like the middle-aged figure, and Khaled relates to the kids. Like, it's in there. I'm still kind of on that borderline where I'll joke around with them, but I'm more, not to say Khaled's not serious, but like he could go in a different angle with them sometimes, and they appreciate that though. And they probably can find things in Khaled that they probably wouldn't with me or John, and that's important. What do you like best, Khaled, about being a coach? Like, what's your favorite thing about it? What do you enjoy coaching?
Well, going even back to what you're saying, just real quick before I answer that question, I feel like you kind of almost need that though, because I feel like John's kind of at the age he's a little bit older. I think kids don't want to tell John stuff sometimes. They don't want to tell you because you're a little older, right? And you're not an old man yet, but you're a little older. And I feel like they feel comfortable talking to me, being that I'm somewhat around their age. Like I'm only 5 or 6 years older than most of these high school kids, so I definitely feel they feel more comfortable talking to me sometimes about whatever is going on.
Yeah, I think so. I'm sorry, I'm just texting my dad back, so I'm not ignoring it. But we had DeBellis. Would you say we kind of had that same thing at Greeley for a while? Like when I first came on at Greeley, I took it very seriously, but there's definitely when you're the younger coach, there's a different connection where the kids might tell you things that they don't want to tell somebody that's 40 instead of 30 or 40 instead of 20 years old, because they feel like they might have that comfort level. And I do feel like that's important for every program to have that.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good to have new blood in the room. And the kids coming out, they've graduated through the systems that you were teaching them. So they're disciples, really, and they come in and they know exactly the same exact technique. Khaled could jump in right away on any of the techniques that you were showing and be able to help and, work that kid. And, because that's a big thing. Repetition and getting the move right. There's a lot to be said for just getting it right. And Khaled was really good at the technical part of it where your elbow's in the wrong spot, your hip pressure's wrong, and he could walk around the room just like any of us. And
well, Coach, over the last 2 years, I would say or so, Khaled started running a lot of practice at Empire. He's the man in the Connecticut spot. He's the man in the Connecticut spot, and even in the Somers spot, especially once I had Luca, he was very much involved there. And at first, I would say maybe 2 years ago or so, when he started running practice, he would ask me what to do, right? And I would talk to him about it, and we would do whatever. Now, it's not even a thought in his mind. He's very much matured into his own guy, and he does his own thing. He's very good at certain things. There was that guy from Penn State who's going to be the 74 pounder next year. What's that guy's name, Khaled?
DeBellis. Carter Starucci?
Yeah, that kid's a stud, right? But Khaled worked with him a little, and he brought back a bunch of good technique. And to me, it's the ego thing, right? Khaled's showing this stuff to some of the kids, and I'm standing there over there watching, how did you do that? What are you doing? And then at the same time, Khaled's younger than me, but if I'm running a practice, Khaled will say, hey, what do you do after you do that? How do you keep them engaged or whatever it may be? He wants to learn. He wants to be better. Just like I want to be better and you want to be better. And I think that's the recipe of a good coach. If you don't want to take advice from anybody else and you think that you know it all, you're not going to be the best coach possible. I really think that's a real thing.
The parents probably think
what you're good at too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you gotta know what you're good at.
The parents probably think I'm a genius in Connecticut, but a lot of times, I would just take a lot of the stuff that you were teaching or bringing into the room and just, I would show it to the guys in Connecticut, in the Connecticut location. And obviously I split time between Connecticut and the Somers location. But, I would take a lot of the stuff that you were teaching, at practice in Somers, and I would just take it and show it to those guys in Danbury.
But you know what's interesting? Coach, jump in on this too. You know what's really interesting? Is I appreciate you saying that, but I didn't invent that stuff, right? So I stole that from somebody else. Not stole that, but I saw somebody else do that and I implemented it. So you saw me do it and you implemented it. I didn't invent that crap, right? Like, so I think that's something that's maybe misconstrued in the wrestling world, where they think like, no, this is how I do it. Dude, you saw somebody else do that. Somebody taught you that. You know, it wasn't like you just came up with that. So, I mean, every once in a while you watch some of these Penn State guys, and I think Khaled, myself, and Coach Bellis could do it too, where we innovate and we like adapt things a little bit and we change things a little bit. But the blueprint's there. It's what you do with the blueprint, right? It's how you put it out, you know?
And I think you're going to make those gains with the innovation piece. I've always noticed over time. Well, I mean, if we went back to college wrestling with our same, being in the same shape with the knowledge we have now, it would be a different story, and even mentally.
Well,
but I've noticed that the gains are made in the off season, though. It's hard to fly the airplane and fix it at the same time. You know, you're competing, you're doing 40 matches a year. That's tough. But if you do the spring season where it really the pressure's off and you can go down and you could really be creative, like you were saying, Coach, you know, and you got to feel the way your body feels. And like Khaled is way different than us, than me, than you, because he has that jiu-jitsu background. But that's the time to get better is in the off season for sure.
You want to hear an interesting point too, and tell me if you guys agree with this. You know, I'm 33. I think I could give my senior year in college a good match. But the senior year in college me was way better shape, stronger, quicker, and probably tougher. You know,
Better looking too.
no, I've been actually aging way. I was a goofball. I'm not saying I'm good looking now, but I'm on the plus side right now. Anyway, like a fine wine, Dean. You make a comment like that again, you're getting muted. But what I want to say is the reason I think that's possible is because I think I'm far better at wrestling. I think when I was 22, I was tough, strong, and fast. And I was good at wrestling. I was wrestling in college. But I think I relied on certain things. I was good at certain things. I wasn't able to get out of my comfort zone. Now I'm good in most of it. I understand most of it. Khaled will bring a good technique. You'll bring a good technique. I'll put it into my little, bag of tricks, and I add it on to my repertoire. And, I think that's changing with kids too, like at the club especially. Like, and I talked about this. I forgot what interview it was, but I talked about this a little bit. But guys like Camacho, AJ, RJ, even the Jacob Aarons and Matts who took it to the next level, they made me a better coach too. And I'm sure for Khaled as well, and you, Coach Sabellis, like they were never disrespectful, but we would go over techniques and it would be like, oh, that's really cool, but how if we try this? And never in a disrespectful way. And I love that. I love when you like really think in depth of like the position, right? AJ Kovacs is so good at that. Like me and him will talk for a half hour. We'll be drilling, we'll be sweating, and they'll be like, wait, how about this? I saw this, blah, blah, blah. And Khaled's really good at that. And I think he's getting better at that, hanging around with some of the friends he's made, like, Roman Bravo Young and these guys that are super talented. You just learn and you keep getting better and better. And that's why wrestling, I hate the perception that wrestling's like this meathead sport where you just kind of bang heads. It's so intricate. If you want to be good, you have to be so smart and so tactical to be good. And you have to know your strengths. Going back to the club, I was never great on top. Coach, I was good on top in high school just because I was tougher than the kids and I was able to ride them. But like Coach Sabellis is good on top. So I'll watch things Coach Sabellis does. I'll pick up on them. And then in the club level, RJ is really good with the claw ride, right? So if we want to go over a claw ride, I'll say, hey, RJ, show that claw ride that you're hitting on everybody Eastern States. Let's go over it, but break it down. And while he's breaking it down, I might talk a little bit to make sure the kids are listening and that they're engaged and things of that nature. But I'm watching just like the kids are watching to make sure that I can add that to my repertoire. And Khaled does the same thing. And Coach Sabellis does the same thing really with us. It's like, you can't have an ego. You got to always keep learning. If you want to keep being a coach, you got to keep evolving.
Mm-hmm.
And Khaled's evolved a lot. And that's basically why I kind of went on that right there.
I definitely think I know more wrestling now than I did when I was competing. I think even when you start really breaking down technique and having to explain it rather than just drill it, I think you build, this almost,
intuition.
Yeah, of techniques, so I definitely think coaching, and being around some of those high level guys that you mentioned, I definitely pick some stuff up from them that, obviously Penn State's, they make up moves and they obviously are pretty good. And I pick up stuff from them and I pick up stuff from, like you said, from guys. I mean, I was coaching Camacho, but Camacho very well probably knew just as much wrestling as me, if not more, probably more, honestly. But I was
a special guy.
Yeah, he was like a dictionary when it came to, I would pick up stuff from him, you know what I mean, sometimes. For other guys, even if it was a Horace Greeley guy or Empire guy, he was just, special.
Do you know what I love about guys like Camacho too? And that, not to go like in another level there, but he's at one of the best programs in the country. Where Jacob Ferreira is one of our alumni and who's doing a great job too. Who the coach really likes him there too. Grippy, yeah, Grippy. They're all there. Like, and AJ now RJ are going there. But Jacob would still, like, I would bust his chops, like, oh, you forgot about the little people, like, joke around with them. But when he was going through it a little bit, like, he called me and we talked about, like, mindset and things of that nature. And he just wants to – I think that's hopefully the kids that are watching this, the recipe to be successful is to pick as many people's brains as you can. I might not have the answer, but, hey, here's my answer. And then go to Khaled and hear his answer and kind of figure out what works for you, right? Like, it's not going to be the be-all, end-all. And I think that's important. And I think Khaled as a coach is very good at, especially when he's, like, dialed in and he's, like, ready to go, very good at saying, hey, this will work for you. It doesn't have to work for everybody else. This will work for you because everybody's different,
Khaled did a great job specializing with certain wrestlers in the room. I know
singles lethal.
Yeah. So.
And he wrestles like a lightweight. Khaled wrestles like a lightweight.
He's very quick. Well,
very quick.
Said something that really resonated with me was about, being able to slow down the technique because you had to teach it, so you had to learn it. So that happens to me a lot in teaching too. Like, I know how to, do this, but now I got to slow it down. I got to break it down. But I think it's an important thing for students or wrestlers, even at the high school level, to give back and participate in youth practices, modified practices as coaches. What do you think?
You asking me or Tortora?
I wouldn't. Yes, I'm asking you, KD.
Oh, for sure. I agree. I think just picking up and for those guys, you have to like almost relearn the stuff. Like you said, it's like because you not only have to learn it. Obviously the moves, but you have to learn how to teach it to someone. As crazy as that sounds, you have to. It's just not the same as when you're an athlete and like, Torres showing you a move. He's like, you hit this high crotch this way and you go and drill it and then you hit it and you either use it or you don't. And then, when you have to actually teach it to someone, it's a completely different, ball game. And just in general, it's like, you can't teach everyone. Like if I had to teach everyone, I can't teach everyone what you do. You have to adapt. If you're going to be a great coach, you just have to adapt to other athletes too. And, because not everyone's going to wrestle like Coach DeBellis does or I do or Coach Torre does or Coach Deagle does. So you have to adapt and figure out ways to, help other people's games as well. Because we're all not, like you said, we're not the same. We're not all the same wrestlers. We're different sizes and stuff. We have to wrestle differently. So I think you get better at wrestling just learning how to coach others too and not just yourself because you kind of develop your own game, just for yourself. But then eventually you have to develop games for everyone.
You know what's interesting too, KD? Like, some coaches will get angry when the kid asks the question when you're showing the move. And sometimes to me, like, if you could tell when a kid's being a wise guy, it's like, all right, don't ask stupid questions. Like Dennis and Tyler, I love them to death, but they would like ask silly questions on purpose just to get me riled up. And then they know how witty I'm pretty freaking witty. So I would just destroy them and then get back to showing the move. But like, if a kid was really asking something, but it made me think, I kind of liked it because it made me get better at it. It's like, oh, you're right. That could kind of happen. Let me figure this out. And I would always try to do it together. And I've seen Khaled do it. And I think that's a really good trade to like, no, go drill it. We'll figure it out. That doesn't help. Like, let
told you to do it, damn it.
Yeah. Like, let's see what's going on here. That's a good question, but we're going to wrap up soon. But I want to say two funny Khaled stories. Cause I think everybody that knows Khaled, knows that he's a funny guy. Actually, before I say that, last thing nice about Khaled, I'm going to make fun of him. The nice things,
sandwiches,
is that his personality. Like, he's a great coach, right? But his personality is doing huge things for the club right now. Like we're in a bad situation. Not the club itself. John's has a very well established club, so we're good. But like, he is very much involved with who we're having for those webinars. He makes those connections. He's getting these people. He's making those phone calls. He's building these connections where it's like, hey, we're buddies now. Like, can you do me this favor? And it's hard to say no to Khaled because he's a likable guy. He was just out in Arizona for weeks with Roman Bravo Young, who's one of the best wrestlers in the country. And they're buddies, and I think because of that, Khaled had an interview on some random, like, I don't know what it was, like an Instagram live club in Arizona, and they were interviewing Coach Khaled, and it's like, there was a bunch of viewers. It's like, and I'm watching this guy and I'm watching him flourish. So I'm like, it's pretty cool to see, it's pretty cool to see him take it to the next level. So I wanted to end my serious talk with that. But a funny story. We're driving back. I think it was from States. I don't know where it was from. But I just want to know that Khalid might become this unbelievable coach, but I'm still his dad. He still sends me a card on Father's Day. We're driving back.
Guys, I just want to let you know, guys, this doesn't happen. No cards being given out on Father's Day.
Right, it's like chocolate or something. I don't know what he does. But we're driving back. Right? We're driving back. And this knucklehead has one of those fidget spinners. Right? I tell everybody the story because I think it's so funny.
That was pop and flow.
I was so mad. So, like, we're driving back. This guy takes, the bells. You know how the fidget spinner has 3 things? This knucklehead puts the fidget spinner in each one of all 3 of them in his mouth, right? And, like, really lathers it up with saliva. And, like, takes it and spins it while I'm driving. I just get hit with spit in my face. Like,
Not good.
I think I caught him with a palm to the head. I took his fidget spinner and threw it out on I-87. And he had the audacity. Hey, why'd you do that? Like, I did something wrong. That one. Do I have any more, Khalid, I should say? I leave it at that?
There's plenty of KD stories if you want to go on. But you might be here for a while.
I'm not going to talk about the Ford phone charger because you're a smart guy now. I'm going to leave that one out. I'm going to leave the phone charger out. He can make fun of me. We were coming back from Pop and Flow when I drove into the ditch. That was bad.
Boy, yeah. That was just me and you, though. So
No,
it wasn't
Jordan
that bad.
Wallace. Jordan
Wallace was in the car, too.
See, I don't know if I saw the video, but I was I was nervous for them because they were still younger, right? I mean, I think they were out of high school. They were seniors or whatever, but, like, I told them to get out. I'm like, get out of the car. I'll stay in. You guys get out first. I'll get out last. Like, God forbid the thing, like, flips or something. I'll figure it out. So they get out. I'm in a ditch like this. And they get out. I'm like, crap. So I get out. Luckily, by the grace of God, whoever this guy was that was living right there.
Hillbilly.
I guess, yeah, big time. I guess it happened all the time. People did that. So he had the chain ready. He was getting down.
Oh, stop it. Don't say that happened all the time. Please, stop.
So there's a video of me talking to these very nice people, right? I'm talking to them. And Khalid's in the background with his phone going, Anthony, what'd you do? Anthony, what'd you do? Like, laughing hysterically. I'm like,
yeah,
I still think it's funny. If I watch it now, I'll still laugh because this guy's a clown.
So like I was telling about, me and Tora's cousin, no, he's not your nephew, he's your cousin, we're probably pretty close, probably the closest in the club. And, we for like a week, we would like just take Snapchats of Tora's car with all 4 wheels on the ground. We're like, hey, coach, it's nice to see you have all 4 wheels on the ground here. We, it was brutal
I'm one of the most popular people on Snapchat that's never had a Snapchat. I'd be driving and they'd be Snapchatting me and I'd be like, get that thing out of my face. They'll be Snapchatting me, say that, and like crazy stuff.
Just take pictures of you. Like, I'm talking about the weight, wherever you were at in your sports.
I would be doing anything. But what's funny, too, D? I don't know if you know the story. You'll get a kick out of this, DeBellis. So it was one day, remember that car I had before I started having the Jeeps, that beat up old Mercedes that I should never have had?
Yeah.
So it was rear-wheel drive, so it was horrible in the snow, horrible. So we went up to practice. It was a blizzard, and I had to drive Khalid and Justin home. I think it was Justin, but definitely Khalid. I had to drive home, and my car just couldn't do it. Like, it was spinning, like going down 100.
We literally made it a quarter mile down the street from the club, and really not making.
So I called my dad like a little baby. I'm like 27, 28. I'm like, Dad, I'm stuck. Like, what am I supposed to do here? So my dad shows up, right? He shows up with an all-wheel drive car, so he's good to go. Shows up. I jump in that car.
Oh, my God.
Car, and somehow, some way, this son of a gun gets my car going. And he's making he's going.
All the way home to Yonkers.
The whole way home, he's telling them how, like, he's awesome and I suck pretty much.
You were by yourself in the other car?
I don't remember.
I forgot where we were. No, it was when we got out of the car because he actually.
I might have took them too, but when we got out of the car, he probably bragged to them how great he was and how I'm not great or something.
Yeah, no, he was got out of the car.
I could handle this. Ed, he don't know. He doesn't know.
No
I still get that. He came over yesterday. He looked at my grass and he was like looking at Luke. He's like, "You want to come over to Grandpa's house to see how a real backyard's supposed to look?" I'm like, why would you say that to me?
Your dad was awesome. It was great having him around too.
Meeting her for a while. We're trying to get him to interview, but I'm pretty good with KD. KD, DeBellis, you got anything else for this guy?
Nope. Thanks for all your hard work. You're doing a great job. Keep it up. I'm following you on Instagram.
Do you have anything else to say?
DeBellis doesn't have social media, so I don't know how he's possibly following me on Instagram.
He has Twitter and Facebook.
I never
I just put that out in the public.
Dude, I can't. It's just to look at that screen all the time stresses me out.
He's one of those guys that will never get an easy pass because he doesn't want the government to track him.
No, I do have an easy pass. I was thinking about that the other day. That I don't use it anymore because I don't live across the bridge. So I'm wondering, are they still charging me?
Yeah, you should get rid of that. But I don't know if that's for the interview right now.
All right. Well, anyway, we'll stop recording. Stay on for 1 second, please. Hold on.